My headset got muted. Okay. Is that better, guys? My apologies. We good? All right. I think we Oh yeah, it helps if I click the little unmute button on my camera. Okay. So, I'm in Lightroom. This is my screen. Okay, we're, attempting here to share it. Um my I use Lightroom because it is professional grade software, and I also get a copy of Photoshop to use with it. I don't plan on using Photoshop today, although I could tinker with it. But this is the photo that I took in Cuba in the beginning of 2024, in March of 24. I went to Cuba with some really good friends of mine, some former client or some clients, as well as just friends. And we did a week-long trip, or 10 days, I think, in Cuba. And so this image is on the street in the city of Cienfuegos. And if we go onto the map here, this is where I shot the picture. So there's this groovy little map mode. And so here's Cuba. There's where I grew up in Miami. And pretty much just due south is the city or town of Cienfuegos. And this is where I shot the picture. And I am able to collect that information because I have a GPS track log um, that works through my phone and connects to my camera, so it puts the GPS data in there. So this was taken on March 5th of 24, 5:30 in the evening. So we have the nice um, late afternoon light, and this is what the photo looks like when I bring it into Lightroom. Okay. Um, and what we're going to look at, let's take a quick look at my exposure information here. Okay. So this was with a 12 to 100 f4 zoom lens captured at 15 millimeters. I was shooting an OM1, so that's a micro four thirds sensor. So this is 2x uh, equivalent. So it's equivalent to 30 millimeters on full frame. And let's see what else. If you're curious, I shot it wide open, 3/20th of a second. So why did I do that? You'll notice I put in a little bit of plus EV exposure bias. That was to push my histogram here as far to the right as I could get it without blowing anything out. That's a different topic for a different day. But when I'm in the field, if I had just captured this photo um, normally, depending on the scene, this is kind of a shady street and it's late afternoon light. The sky is almost blown out, but it's not blown out. So I take care when I'm in the field, when I'm traveling, most of the time, to try to get my exposure in the camera correct. Not so that it looks perfect on the screen, but so that I have a quality data set to work with when I'm back home or in the hotel or wherever post processing. So there's a difference between capturing a photo and capturing a data set. The two are related, of course. The photo is the final output. So what I'm going to do is we're going to go into the I'm going to go into my develop module, which is up here. You can hit D on the keyboard, and I'm going to maximize this some more. Okay. Now, if you use Lightroom, this is what you'll get. You'll get a default set of settings that Lightroom applies to your photo. They are not based on your in-camera settings necessarily. And I wrote an article a while back, about a week or two ago, about what settings the software reads and what it ignores. So a lot of it these days depends on your camera. So I've actually set mine up to, this is just the default, but if I wanted to, with my Lightroom here, I can go down to the presets, go under defaults, and I actually have an option for camera settings, and it changes it to whatever the camera settings were. Now, sometimes it changes a lot of stuff like sharpening, sometimes, and noise reduction, sometimes it doesn't. It depends on your camera. So what I like to do is just have my own default settings using a custom profile that I like, because it renders colors nicely. These are profiles that I purchased from a company called Cobalt Imaging. You don't need to buy them, but I did because it gives me a lot of flexibility. More on that later. But your normal profile is one called Adobe Color. And you can see that if I just change to lower contrast profiles, look, there's clouds here. There's stuff in this picture that wasn't there, wasn't quite obvious when you first look at it. So I have a very low contrast profile from Cobalt called Repro, and it squishes all the tones together when I apply it. Okay, and you can get a similar effect if you don't have these profiles. Just use Adobe Neutral. It's a little brighter, but you can see that there's more contrast here, or less contrast, excuse me. Now, when I'm working on a photo like this, I might be tempted to start messing with my sliders. Do I want to change the white balance, the color temperature? Do I want to adjust the exposure or the contrast? Okay. I don't want to do that. I actually am going to approach this photo as components, and I'm going to address each component separately. So if you look at this shot from a subject content point of view, what we've got is the street, the cars, the buildings, and a sky. And I want to adjust each of those components individually. And then at the end, I'm going to tweak everything globally to make it work out right. Okay, so first thing I'm going to do before I do anything else is I'm going to make sure that my sharpening settings and everything is good. I like to just go ahead and run denoise on my images. It's just by default, I run it, it cleans up shadow noise. So if I pull up shadows later, they'll be less noisy. And I'm going to do it first because it takes a little while and it can have ripple effects if I make masks or something later on. Okay, so that's all good. And Now I'm going to go to the masking panel, which is this little circle up here, masking. And I'm going to add new masks. Now I can do them however I want, but I'm going to take advantage of a really cool feature in Lightroom, and that is the landscape mask tool. Now this doesn't look like a landscape, but hear me out. I'm going to click the landscape tool, and it's going to analyze the objects and the elements of my scene and give me the option to make um, either one giant mask or individual masks based on what it detects, which is very cool. So notice it detected the sky, it detected the architecture, it detects vegetation, although I'm not concerned about that. And it detects artificial grounds. I'm going to go ahead and do that. And I'm going to check this box here that says create 3 separate masks. Okay. So I'm going to say create mask. And you'll notice that the things that are left here, there's a little bit of the curb, but it's basically the cars. Create mask. And now it does it. And here are the masks. These are just selection areas. Now nothing's been done to these. You can just see in red where they are where they're applied. So let's start. I'm going to start off right first by just tinkering with the sky. So I'm going to go into the sky mask right here, and it's picking up a little bit of the buildings. I'm not going to worry too much about that for this right now. If you wanted to really get into it, you could. But I'm just going to lower the exposure a little bit, pull down the highlights a little bit, and make it a little more blue. So now all of a sudden, instead of that white sky, I've got a blue sky, and there's some clouds back there, and it looks like some smoke too. God only knows what was going on back there. It was in Cuba, okay? The architecture. So here's my buildings. What I want to do with them, their exposure looks fine. That's okay. But what I want to do is I want to add some contrast, and I want to recover some highlights just a little bit. And then I'm going to go down to the color, and let's punch those buildings up a bit with some saturation. Now, you've seen my talks before. This is really vibrance. But if, let's say, there was a color I really wanted to attack, I could using the point color tool. I'm not going to do that. Go to my effects tab, and let's add a little clarity to the buildings and a little bit of dehaze. These are just contrast adjustments that operate in different algorithms, basically different computations. So clarity is a form of contrast, you can see, but it works differently than the regular contrast slider. Clarity brings out a little more of the texture. Speaking of texture, let's tackle these cobblestones on our street. So I'm going to go down here to the effects panel, and I'm going to add that clarity in. And the street really should be dark. So I'm going to just pull the shadows down a little bit on the street and the blacks. All right. So at this point, what you can see is that I've adjusted this entire image in sections rather than just using the global controls. Now I can still do that, but before I do that, let's see. Now let's go ahead and I'm going to exit the masks, go back to my basic, and you can look at the histogram. I'm not really messing with anything. I don't have any blown highlights. I can turn on my highlight warning indicator. I am clipping the blacks a teeny bit, but if you look to see where it is, it's way down here in the shadows. I don't care about that, so that's fine. It's okay. And so now I can globally, if I want to just adjust the contrast or the overall image, a little saturation. Now see here, I'm going to pull out those oranges if I really saturate this. So if I crank the saturation, this gets pretty ugly down here. This is not natural. So I'm going to back that off. And in fact, what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to go in to my color mixer, to the saturation, pull up my targeted adjustment tool, and just choose this orange down here. I'm just going to drag the slider down a teeny bit. I'm just clicking on the orange area. It doesn't matter where I click as long as it's on this orange color, and it's going to move the corresponding sliders around. So I'm just desaturating that a tiny bit because it got a little too orange, a little bit too exaggerated. Okay, so that's pretty good. Let's um, let's have some fun um, because what I want to do is I want to emphasize the subject, which really is this car here. Okay, so let's see if I can do that. So I want to select the car. How can I do that? Well, let's try it this way. I'll go back to my masking panel, create new mask, and I'm going to choose select object as my option here. And I'm just going to paint the car and see what happens. Whoa, okay, that's pretty good, right? Congratulations, it made a smart selection. It made a smart selection. The only thing it missed, if you look closely, is this mirror up here. And honestly, I'm not too worried about that. If I wanted to add it in, I probably could, but I'm not going to worry about it. So let's just pull up the whites. And by moving the white slider on the subject, on this object selection, you see how it makes it brighter? But it doesn't do it in an extreme way. Like if I just pull the exposure slider, whoa, no, 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 that's not good at all, right? So I'm pulling the whites. I'm going to pull up the shadows just a little bit. And then, maybe for this one, again, I'll give it a little bit of clarity. Just a teeny bit, like 8, 9, something like that. So there's my car. And if I wanted to, come back later and know what this was, I could rename the mask. I can call it car. So I can do that. All right. So at this point, things are pretty good. Now we get into the area here of discussing, what's your philosophy on photography? What is it that you're trying to do? At this point, I have done nothing to this photo other than enhance color, contrast, tone. Okay, this is essentially traditional darkroom work just on the computer. I haven't altered anything really, just colors and contrasts. Subtle little tricks if you want to draw the viewer's eye in. Maybe we can add a vignette or do things like that are effects. But if you really, for example, didn't like these people back here, you didn't want them to be in the frame, although I think they add, of course, to the scene. I could go up to my remove tool and choose people and see if it finds any. Sure enough, it did. Well, okay, that's not a people. So I'm going to click this and delete it. Trash can. But oh, there is a people there. See? I wasn't wrong. There's a person there. Interesting. It was smart. All right. And then all you got to do is click remove and we'll see what happens. This is just for fun. So it removed the people and then it told me, hey, you did something that's going to tinker with your masks. So I need to regenerate my masks. So click update here. This yellow uh, refresh icon is my hint there. So now all of a sudden I'm on this street without any people. Well, there's this one dude there, but that's okay. But it got rid of the people. What if I wanted to get rid of this car? Now that's hard. I mean, this car, in fairness, is distracting. I'm not going to, this is not something I would worry about it. And obviously, if you're a photojournalist, this would not apply. But if I wanted to get rid of that car, I could try doing it in Lightroom, but honestly, that's a Photoshop thing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this image into Adobe Photoshop. So I'm just going to say photo edit in Photoshop 2026, which is the newest, most current version. Let it fire up. And let's have a little fun. Okay, so the first thing I'll do in Photoshop, just to make sure I don't screw anything up, is I'm going to duplicate my background layer so that I've got the original image saved just in case. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the um, the remove tool, which is right here, and I'm going to see if it works. I got to zoom in here. Okay. Photoshop and Lightroom really need to make their keyboard shortcuts the same. And what I'm going to tell the remove tool to do is not to remove after each stroke because I want to build up a selection. So I'm just going to paint over this offending vehicle. And you don't have to be exactly perfect when you do it. We're just going to see what happens. Get down here. Okay. And if you miss, you can hit the Option or Alt key, and that switches you to an erase brush. Okay. There's a little bit of the car, but I'm not going to sweat that too much. No one's going to notice that. When I'm good, I'm just going to click the check and say remove, and we'll see what happens. This is with AI stuff, so this is just for fun. Hey, it's gone. Now, the the only issue with that is if you notice here, I've got this tree floating in space. So, you know, that was the remove tool. I'm going to undo this and I'm going to just use we're going to do a different way of removing. I'm going to just use the lasso tool. Whee! Come around here. And I'm going to add to that a little bit. Just get it all right. This requires more mouse control than what I've currently got. And then once you've made a selection, you can then hit remove or you can hit generative fill. I'm just going to hit remove, see what this does. You know what? You guys have a good point. I'm not sharing my entire screen. I'm sharing my Lightroom screen. Thank you for pointing that out, guys. How about Photoshop? There we go. Helps if I have the mic on. I wasn't expecting to do Photoshop today, so this was without a net. So here you go. I hit the remove background. I don't even know what that harmonize button does. I got something else to learn. Now, the weird thing is, if we look at this, it put in something here that did not exist before. This was not there. So here's the car, and it put something in. So this is what happens when you use Photoshop to do the remove tool. It doesn't always work. So, so, so to me, it's the kind of thing that you can experiment with, you can play with it, but don't trust it for anything. Again, you don't have to take people or cars out of these shots. Let me try something a different way. Let's do the object selection tool, and let's see if it finds. Yeah, okay. So it finds this object, and I use the object selection tool. I'm over here on the left here. This thing here, object selection tool, and it selects the object. And now if I hit generative fill and just leave it blank, we're going to get a different way of removing things. Again, this is all AI stuff, so you never know what's going to come out. Okay, now here, the interesting thing is when you use generative fill, let me make this bigger here, you get variations that you can apply. So you can pick the one that looks the best. See, it puts trees in there. It attempted to keep the curve. So that one's not too bad, although this is kind of strange right here. And it sort of screwed up our light. And that's why I do everything with layers, because I can get back to my original if I need to. So lots of different attempts here, lots of different tools. So you can use the remove tool, you can use the lasso tool and then click remove, or you can use generative fill. If you use generative fill, it tends to add things in that you may not want based on the scene. So in normal times, I will try to use the remove tool. Go to my object selection here. And I'm going to subtract out this thing here. Okay. And now I'm going to hit remove again. And we'll try it a third time and see what happens. Okay. So it left an oil stain right there where it was. So again, just having fun here. I'm going to just exit this and take it back to Lightroom. Okay. Removing the car, didn't exactly work. You can play with it if you know what you're doing. Let's finish off this image now with some finishing effects, okay? The important thing to know is that if you work with Lightroom and go into Photoshop, it brings you back into Lightroom with your new Photoshop file that you can edit in Photoshop, which is a important thing to remember. This is still the original, just edited raw file. So let's go ahead and do some finishing touches on this one for this one. And according to this, my microphone is still working. Yay. All right. So I'm going to go down to the effects panel and let's just put on a little vignette on this. And let's see if I can straighten the image a little bit. No, doesn't look like it needs anything. I was pretty level when I shot this. And the only thing I don't like about this photo is this little blob up in the upper left corner. It's not a big deal, but it's distracting. So I could try to remove that, or I could just use my crop tool. I'm going to go ahead and use the Lightroom remove because I don't want to crop the image differently than the way it is here. Okay, let's go to remove and remove with the AI, detect objects. And I'm just going to use this brush, paint over that thing. And this should be pretty easy. Click remove. Didn't want to get rid of that. If it doesn't work, you hit the pin, click delete, and we'll try it again. There we go. Remove. I could do this with cloning too, probably. There we go. And now that's gone. So that was my last distraction. And let's go ahead and, oh, it wants me to redo my masks. No problem. But let's go ahead and compare this to where we started from, because that's always the real fun part, right? So let me go to my history. See if I can find it. Ooh, I did so much stuff to this image. Here we go. Copy history steps to before. Okay. And now if I do before, after. Oops. What do we do here? Okay. And we'll do before, after. Takes a second. There you go. All right. Yay. We made it. So here we got on the left is the image as it came out of the camera, or at least close enough to it. That's what I would have had. I probably wouldn't have exposed it that way if I were shooting JPEG. I probably would have had uh, the sky darker. But on the right is the more or less finished product, and remains an example of why I like to tinker with my photos. I don't consider my photos done until I've actually processed them. Now, sometimes that processing is really, really mellow. It's not hardcore like this, but let me just jump back here onto my screen. Okay. Hopefully we learned something today. I don't know. I learned about making sure I can turn my microphone on, so that's why these things are just live streams in the middle of the afternoon, and and they're free. When you let me wrap up everything with a little take home message here. You're if and this is for photo enthusiasts. I'm not talking about you're walking around with your phone just taking snapshots in a place. That's different and that's totally fine. Okay, nothing wrong with that. But when you're traveling, like on one of my workshops or on a tour or something like that, and you're trying to get the best possible pictures to bring home, you don't have to. There is no way really to get them to be done in the camera. Sure, there are some scenes where absolutely, the camera is going to just record them quite nicely, and you don't need to really tinker with anything. Maybe just a little color and contrast. But most of the time, you're running around, especially in streets where you've got wide range of tone. We've got a lot of shadow and highlight in that scene. Um, I didn't capture that image in the camera to look like the print or the final output. I didn't. I used the camera's exposure meter, the histogram, to make sure that I was getting all of the tones without blowing anything out, without clipping anything too badly, shadows or especially highlights. And then knowing that when I got back home or returned to your hotel or wherever, when I had my laptop or whatnot, I could edit those. If you capture the information in the camera correctly, regardless of how the camera makes it look. Okay, don't worry about how the camera's color and whatever looks. If it looks a little bright, look at that histogram and ask yourself, am I containing everything in it? And if the answer, no matter what it looks like, and if the answer is yes or close to yes, you're fine. Because then if you take that raw and you capture in raw, you can take it back and make the necessary adjustments to to that photo so that you end up with something like this. And I'll go back to my Lightroom. Let's, okay. So, whoops, collapse the screen. There we go. Make a nice black background. So there you have it, the final image. We got a lot of pop, we got a lot of color. We've emphasized our subject. I made it a little brighter. I brought that sky back to have the clouds that were there. Um, is this what I saw in reality? I don't know what I saw in reality because your brain does a lot of things, but that was what I was trying to do. So I hope to have more of these in the future, where I walk through an image with processing. Um, if you were late to the party, I'm going to make this recording available, so you all can watch. But thanks again for tuning in. It's been fun, technical craziness aside. Don't forget to hit the like button. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. And I'll see you again real soon, I hope. Until next time, take care.